She is the ocean's gray wave. That's right, today we're talking about Azura. We're going to discuss her pros and cons, how to build her, how to use her. I know some people requested other characters, and we will absolutely get to those next, but I wanted to get rid of some of the main bases first, some of the first units you get. And then I realized, oops, Azura isn't actually one of the first units you get in Conquest, but, you know, whatever. She's kind of a core unit, and she's an important character, so we're gonna do her now. Alright, let's talk about Azura's 3 categories as we did with Corn. First of all, her personal skill is Healing Descant. I looked it up, that's how you say it. It basically means a small melody accompanying the main tune, or a simple tune. Which kind of makes sense, since this is kind of like something she does on the side. It's not her main singing. Anyway, whatever. Allies within 2 spaces recover 10 HP at the beginning of the user's turn. I find it to be a pretty weak skill overall. I'm not going to say it's garbage, because it can completely mitigate things like walking on spikes, or starting your turn on spikes, rather. Poison damage, stuff like that. It can just erase that from being a problem, and it can also save you some staff uses if you're worried about money. So it could be a good thing, but if you're like me, I like to actually have as many excuses to use staffs as possible to increase EXP. So I don't love this skill, I'm not gonna lie. Now let's quickly talk about her class options as well. She has 2 classes from the get-go, as do most characters in Fire Emblem Fates. She has Songstress, which is a unique class to her. She's the only one who can sing in the game, and singing is the equivalent of dancing in older Fire Emblem games. It allows another unit to act again. This is especially good once she gets her level 10 skill, Inspiring Song, which increases various stats by 3, like speed and skill. I believe luck is the 3rd one. It's a very helpful skill because it not only lets you move again, it also lets them have a higher chance of double attacking and more accuracy and so on and so forth. She is a really useful unit to have around just because of her ability to sing, and honestly, it's one of the most broken things in the game if you combine it with a later skill, that being Warp. Now, Warp comes from the Witch's 25th level skill, and as you may know, Witch is one of the DLC classes in the game. You can get 1 per playthrough for free, 1 Witch Seal or whatever they're called for free each playthrough. So I don't really consider it unfair to be using a Witch or a Ballistician in a run, one or the other. So therefore, I highly recommend giving your Witch Seal to Azura. She can make such good use of it. Normally she only has 5 movement while in her Songstress class, but while she has Warp, you can immediately, instead of moving normally, you can move next to any ally on the battlefield. So it lets you do insane combos, basically. You can get a really high movement character and move them all the way across the map, and then warp Azura all the way to them and let them move again with more speed, and then you can use this to like minimalize and trivialize chapters. You can just destroy a boss in 2 turns or something like that with this strategy. It's so powerful. You might actually want to not use it just because it's too good, but it's your prerogative. I'll probably be using it on my Lunatic run. It's so fun, it's so crazy, and it's so good. Let's briefly also talk about her Skynet options. It doesn't really give her the bulk needed to be a frontline unit, but it does give her a boost in resistance growth and movement speed, so it does make her a much more viable option, for instance as maybe a mage killer. I personally recommend going into Kinshi Knight for her because it gives her the Amaterasu ability, because if you're going to be trying to use her as kind of a frontline combat unit, you're definitely going to want Amaterasu because it synergizes really well with her personal skill, as I said before. That being said, I really think keeping her as a Songstress until level 22, and then switching her to Witch is the optimal solution. Why 22, you say? Well, you need, in Fates it's weird, when you switch classes, you need to level up once for every skill you want to learn. So since the Witch's Warp ability is the 3rd ability, you'd learn at level 25. Switching at level 22 would give you 3 levels to learn all of the skills up to that point. You see what I'm saying? Like at level 23 you'd learn the first Witch skill, at level 24 you'd learn the 2nd, and then as you turn to level 25 you're at the perfect level to learn Warp. Woo! It minimizes the amount of time you have to be in the Witch class, which is going to be probably a pretty unfavorable time for you, because you won't have your Singer, and she'll also be pretty much useless as a combat unit, assuming you haven't gotten weirdly high magic growths. Moving on. her availability is quite good. She starts in chapter 9 and you keep her for the rest of the game. She's very underleveled starting at level 1, but that being said, she also doesn't take experience points from other units unless you're using her for combat, which you can. I don't think it's impossible considering her stats, which we'll talk about in just a sec, but typically you want to save XP for other units and use her for singing over and over again. Maybe if she really needs some levels, you can spend some time at the end of a C's chapter dancing over and over again, singing over and over again to earn experience and make her less one-shottable, you know. Alright, lastly, let's talk about her growth rates, which are really wacky. She has complete shit in the HP and defense department to the point where you'll be lucky if you like ever get defense, and HP is a rare treat. So you're probably going to have to invest an HP boosting item at some point on her, because it's so easy for her to get one-shot killed, and that is so frustrating, let me tell you. That being said, she has oddly high strength growths at 50% base, gaining a nice bonus from Songstress's 10% bonus. So I'm like, she has crazy good strength and insanely good skill, speed, and luck. So she's actually quite good at dodging. She's quite good at double attacking enemies. She's very accurate. She does a lot of damage. She's actually like one of my favorite types of units, like a glass cannon build. Plus, she actually doesn't have terrible resistance. So if you do go into Sky Knight, she does become a somewhat viable combat unit. But that being said, as I'm about to mention, I don't think it's really worth it. Plus, that 5 movement, good god, it's so bad. Alright, let's briefly talk about her possible builds, although we've pretty much already covered most of this, but I figured we should at least, you know, take a quick look. Basically, she starts as a songstress. I recommend just keeping her as a songstress until level 22, switching her to witch, getting the warp skill at level 25, and then switching immediately back to songstress. I honestly think this build is far better than any others, and there's no point in arguing it. And for this build, it really doesn't matter who she marries at all. She could marry anybody. It doesn't matter. She's hardly ever going to be paired up with them, so who cares? Honestly, it's kind of a lazy build, but it's also by far one of the most effective because she is such a useful unit to use as a singer. So argue it all you want, but I mean, you could also go into Kinshi Knight for a little bit to grab Amaterasu as purely a support skill, but I feel like that's just wasting precious time with that singer class, to be honest. An alternate build, if you really do want to go as like a more of a physical unit with her, which is honestly an okay build. I don't recommend it per se, but you know, if you want to try it, maybe not on Lunatic, have fun. Like seriously, here's what you do. I would switch her to Sky Knight immediately to start getting that resistance growth up. That is very helpful. Plus, it gives her a skill at level 5 or 10 or whatever that increases your speed by 5 when you're the one attacking. So it pretty much guarantees a double attack when you're the one initiating the attack. So really good. Then you'll want to promote into probably Falcon Knight because it gives you Warding Blow, which honestly is pretty crazy. Just basically negates any possibility of taking damage from a magical attack when you're initiating it. So again, you'll be kind of a strike unit, getting in there, dealing a lot of damage really fast to mages especially, and they won't be able to touch you in return. So kind of cool. You can switch her to Kinshi Knight eventually, but they just have worse growth rates overall, and their big advantage is the Amaterasu skill. So maybe pop in for Amaterasu if you can afford the seals, otherwise don't worry about it too much. As for who she marries, I highly recommend someone like Odin for Sorcerer, because Sorcerer's level 15 skill is Bowbreaker, which would be really helpful for someone like Azura, who is going to not be able to take a physical strike very well in general, and a bow will absolutely one-shot her in every case. So it would be really helpful for her to be able to dodge those really easily. So Sorcerer's level 15 skill, really good, so Odin would be a decent choice. Otherwise, I also think Armored Blow would be really handy to get from Great Knight, so that she wouldn't take an insane amount of damage when she's on the offense either. So it would just kind of make her into a really powerful offensive blitzy character with just does a lot of damage, always double attacks, really good against mages, and would still be able to fare fairly well against physical units on her turn. Maybe if there's a group of a bunch of magic units and like 2 physical units, you could charge in there, kill the physical unit on your turn, and then because you'd have Armored Blow, and then rely on your evasion plus magic resistance to keep you alive for the rest of it. Honestly, she could be a pretty effective unit in that way. So I highly recommend either marrying Odin for Bowbreaker, or someone like Silas, Benny, or Xander for the Cavalier slash Knight path that gives you the Great Knight. That's about all I have for builds, though. She's pretty simple. And with that, guys, I think that wraps up the video again. Thank you all for watching, and please, again, let me know which characters you want. I'm making a list. So far, I have the 3 Awakening characters that exist in Conquest. I'm definitely interested in doing them, as they are some of my favorites, as well as Effie, because she is another early game unit, and also a Knight, which are pretty cool. I like Knights. Plus, I think they have one of the coolest balanced skills in the game in the form of their level 5 general skill, which we'll get to later. I think some of you know what I'm talking about. So, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.